Alright, so there's been a question on my mind for a while now concerning FGO. I posed this question in my Discord and we went down the rabbit hole together in search of an answer, and we did find one, kind of. This is, of course, how old is Gudako in Fate Grand Order? As we all know, the canonical hero of FGO is actually Gudako, and those who argue otherwise are delusional. This, of course, includes everyone who made the anime adaptations. Regardless, I decided to get to the bottom of this, and I'm going to present my findings now like a manic goat. Naturally, there will be spoilers, albeit light ones. We are going to base this all off of the time frame from FGO JP and go from there. So, first we have to ask the question, how old do we start out as? The game says that we are in our mid to late teens, but not of legal drinking age. As this is a Japanese game, that means 20. So, we are between the ages of 16 and 20, guaranteed. We do not have an assigned birthday, technically, because the player gets to choose their own, but according to the Babylon anime, our birthday is December 6th. Mash, on the other hand, is someone who we believe is younger than us, was born on July 25th, 2000. So with that in mind, we have to assume that we were born in the year 1999 on December 6th, putting us at about 16 when the game starts. Now, I'm making the assumption that we are older than Mash because she refers to us as senpai, and before any of you comment, yes, I know that Mash considers all good humans to be her senpai. However, I'm just going to be saying that we're older anyway. Now, this was my original proposed question. From what I can find, none of these events were cleanup events of previous Halloweens, so in theory we should consider them canon. But if that were the case, then Gudako would be at least 21, and she isn't. We are immediately met with this problem of events being considered canon or not. Some events are definitely canon. Others can be put as happening between other events. I say this because we do know that some story events reference certain events. I assume all the summer events are canon because they seem to be the ones that get referenced or reused the most in the main story. We also have to factor in a few other things. Race shifting. When a race shift occurs, the person doing the race shift's soul is sent out into the destination that has been decided upon. So, when you race shift in the coffins, you are put under some kind of cryostasis, so the body does not physically age or get damaged. However, this does not account for mental aging, as the soul is still active during the race shift. So, I will be accounting for the mental aging of our characters during the race shifts. However, the body may still physically age during the race shift without a soul present. My evidence for this is the fact that MASH has an animation update that makes her appear older. Mind you, that's just a hunch. Regardless, I'm counting them as aging in real time, so the cryostasis thing is exclusively physical. So, finally, we're at the start of the game. July 29th, 2015. Chaldea fucking explodes. We get flung into the distant past of 2004 where a hentai protagonist is absent. We don't spend more than a day here before getting out. We have the benefit of knowing that between this date and the end of Solomon, we are at the end of the year 2016. The goal of this was to kill all of the demon god pillars and geisha before the new year started, so we know for certain that after these events, it is the beginning of 2017. So, this puts us at 17 at the conclusion of Solomon. Here's where it gets tricky. The time between the main chapters of Part 1 and Part 2, or better known as the Epic of Remnant chapters, also concludes at New Year's Eve of 2017, meaning that all of the Epic of Remnant chapters happen within the span of 1 year. An argument can be made that these are not canon because you can literally skip over them in order to get to the Lostbelts. However, they do get referenced in the main story as well, namely with a certain samurai, so we have to assume that they do count. So, by the start of the Lostbelt scenario, we are 18. Now, we have to ask the all-important question of how much time has passed in the Lostbelt scenarios. Thankfully, we can somewhat count the amount of time that has passed based on how long we've stayed in each Lostbelt. There are also some events that occurred during the Lostbelt scenarios that I believe should be considered canon, such as the Oku event, as it deals with a beast of humanity. Alright, so, the start of the Lostbelts has Chaldea exploding again. This time, it's frozen over, so we are unable to go back and now live out of the Mystery Machine. We dive into void space and emerge 3 months later in March of 2018 in the Russian Lostbelt. By the conclusion of Russia, I would wager that we spent approximately a month there. This is evidenced by in-game dialogue, travel time between areas, and events such as the would-be execution of Atalanta Altar in what would be 5 days' time. So let's assume that we make our escape from our successful Russian expedition in April 1st of 2018. We really don't spend more than a few weeks in the Norse Lostbelt as well, and the travel time between these two Lostbelts is near negligible thanks to our traveling in void space. We only emerge because we detected someone following us there and find ourselves in the Norse Lostbelt. At most, we spend 3 weeks in this Lostbelt, but even that is stretching it, and only because of travel times and the like. There is no major time lapse like we see in Russia with our assistance of the rebels, so that's going to put us at around April 22nd or so for the conclusion of this Lostbelt. There is a small interlude of time between this and the third one, however, as we do encounter the Wandering Sea, Nemo, and Scion. We are given very little in the time between these two Lostbelts as well, only about a few days to a week to get used to the new environment. But we will round it up to the start of May as being the time when Koyanskaya infiltrates the Wandering Sea and poisons us, thus throwing us into Lostbelt 3. This one is very short as well, only at about 2 weeks max, and even then I think it's really only a week, but I'm going to stretch this. This is in large part because of the poison we are given, putting a time limit on us. We destroy China in about 2 weeks or so, placing us at about May 15th. The Indian Lost Belt is nice because it has a built-in day timer, so we can say with definitive reasoning how many days have passed in it. If I did my math right, including days that have been skipped or forced ahead, we spend a total of 20 days in the Indian Lost Belt, which lands us on June 4th. If it's not that exactly, it's somewhere in that ballpark. In between this and Greece, we have Summer 4, which takes about 2 weeks or so, and I believe that we are given about a month or so to recoup before tackling Greece, given that it is the biggest of the Lost Belts. So, on that assumption, we are starting at around July 4th and getting to the Greeks. Between both, we spend about a month there. It feels long because of all the story that's going on, but realistically, we only spend about 2 weeks or so in each in real time. We are constantly on the run during these two events. So let's just say that that's going to land us about August 4th, making both MASH and ourselves 18. Next is 5.5, aka The Gang Kills a Clown. Now the timelines that I'm looking at for this are a bit more murky, so if I get any of this wrong, please feel free to correct me. This also takes about 2 weeks or so to complete this scenario. So we're at about August 18th. Next stop is the real hell, England. This one is another one of the longer ones, spread across 3 different arcs, and in total we're there for about 4 weeks, at least from my resources. So that lands us on September 8th when we next pick up. At the very least, I can say definitively that we have not spent more than a canonical year in the Lost Belt scenarios. So we, as of right now in the story, are 18 years old, along with MASH also being 18 years old. So, is Gudako allowed to drink under Japanese law? No. What was the point of me answering this innocuous question? There wasn't one. But I do look forward to the event where Moriarty can finally serve us a drink. Alright, y'all have a good night.